Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm making Qatayef Asafiri, or Qatayef Asafiri, I don't know quite how to pronounce it, but these are a pancake which is filled, and they're very popular in the Arab world or the Middle East, particularly around the time of Ramadan, when they enjoy them after they break their feast in the evenings and such like. And they come in a couple of forms. They're a pancake which is only cooked on one side, and then they are filled and then closed into a half moon shape, filled with some nuts or a nut paste and such like, closed into a half moon shape, or filled with a ricotta style cheese filling and closed into those half moon shapes, and they are then deep fried, or they can be baked in the oven. That's one version, but the version which I'm going to do is the same pancake, but instead of being closed, it is sealed a little bit, but it's open at one end, and it's going to be filled with some mascarpone and double cream as a filling, basically, with a little sprinkling of pistachios on as well. So it's actually a simple recipe, and it's not going in the oven. I'm going to do it on my griddle pan, but you can do it in a frying pan, an ungreased non-stick frying pan basically. So I'll go on to the ingredients, and for this I have 125 grams, which is 3/4 of a cup plus 1.5 tablespoons, based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup of plain flour. I have 40 grams, 1/4 of a cup of fine semolina. I have 13 grams, 1 tablespoon of caster sugar, 2 grams, half a teaspoon of baking powder, 1.5 grams, half a teaspoon of instant yeast, 2 grams, half a teaspoon of baking soda, and about 1 gram, 1/4 of a teaspoon of ground mahleb or mahlepi powder, and that's optional. That is a powder which is very popular in the Middle East. It's sometimes difficult to get hold of, but it does give a certain flavour to the pancakes. But as I say, that is optional. You don't need that. And then that's just for the pancake. For the filling, I have I'm going to use 120 millilitres, which is half a cup of double cream. I'm going to use 225 grams, which is 1 cup of mascarpone or ricotta you could use, 20 grams, 3 tablespoons of icing sugar, and here I have 25 grams of pistachios, which I have ground quite finely, and they're going to be used on top of the cream once I've filled the Qatayef. Now, in addition to all of those ingredients, I also have some rose water and some orange blossom water, and in each of the elements I'm going to use some. So in the pancake mix, I'm going to use 1.5 millilitres or so, 1/4 of a teaspoon of rose water. And then in the cream filling mix, I'm going to use 2.5 millilitres of rose water and 2.5 millilitres of orange blossom water. That's half a teaspoon of each. And then I'm going to make a syrup here, and I have for the syrup 60 millilitres of water, which is a quarter of a cup of water. I have 100 grams, which is a half a cup of sugar. I have 2.5 millilitres, half a teaspoon of lemon juice, and I'm also going to use 5 millilitres, 1 teaspoon of the rose water, but I'll mention that again as we go through the recipe. And the first thing I'm going to do is to make the syrup. And to make the syrup, I'm going to put my 100 grams of sugar making a mess as I do so, into my saucepan, and I'm going to pour in the 60 millilitres of water and the 2.5 millilitres of lemon juice. And so I'm going to put that onto my stove, and I'm going to bring it up to the boil, and I'm going to allow it to boil for about 5 minutes. The sugar and water mixture will bubble and the sugar will dissolve and it will start to thicken. Then I'll pour it back into the dish that I had the sugar in, and once it's cooled down I will be able to stir in 5 millilitres of rose water. You don't need to watch this boiling, it's just sugar boiling, so I'll come back when that is done. So I boiled my sugar and water and lemon juice for about 4 to 5 minutes, and it's now cooling down. So I'm going to go on to make the batter for the pancakes, and I'm going to start off by taking just 1/4 teaspoon of rose water and putting it in my water. This is going to flavour the pancakes, and then I'm going to put my sugar, mahlab powder, yeast, baking powder and baking soda, bicarbonate of soda, into the flour, add the semolina as well, and I'm just going to give those a stir around. And then what we're going to do is combine the wet and the dry until we have a smooth batter, the consistency of double cream basically, or heavy cream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the water and the rose water into this processor bowl, and I'm going to process this slowly. You could whisk it by hand until you have a smooth batter. You could use a hand mixer, but I'm going to try it this way. I'll add my dry ingredients into the bowl as well. And then I'm simply going to process those until it goes into a fine batter, and I'm going to start as slowly as I can. And I think that's probably good enough. I'm going to pour that into a bowl. Just like that. And I'm going to leave that for 15 minutes, and that's to allow the liquid to be absorbed more fully into the flour and to the semolina. So while the batter is resting, I'm going to make my filling. So I'm going to put my mascarpone into a bowl. I'm going to add in 120 millilitres of cream, and my icing sugar, and then I'm also going to add in half a teaspoon, 2.5 millilitres of rose water and 2.5 millilitres of orange blossom water. And these are flavours which are synonymous with the Middle East. And I'm simply going to mix those together until I have a nice thick cream for our filling. And that's good enough like that. It came together very quickly. So then I'm going to simply put that into a piping bag. You don't have to put it into a piping bag. You can spoon this mixture into your pancakes if you want, but in a piping bag might make it just that little bit easier to do. So I'll set that to one side. I actually put it in the fridge until I need it. And I have a baking tray on which I have placed a clean tea towel, and that's to take the pancakes as I've cooked them, and then once that I've put a pancake on, I'm going to cover it with another towel like that, and that will keep them nice and moist until I need them. So I have my griddle pan heated to a medium heat, and I'm simply going to take about a tablespoon of the batter and pour it onto the griddle pan like that, and I'm going to allow it to cook for between 45 seconds to a minute. Lots of air bubbles ought to appear on the top, and then as soon as the top becomes dull, it's shiny at the moment as you can see, as soon as it becomes dull and the air bubbles have appeared, that means that they're cooked. I can see I have a misshapen one here, it doesn't matter. But as you can see, the air bubbles are appearing all over the surface, and it starts to dry out around the edge, and then the centre will gradually dry out as well, rather like this one has here. So if I pick this one up, you can see what it's like on the other side. Now it should be perfectly round, and that's not round, but it will be fine. And this one's done as well now. And I'll continue doing those until I've done all of them. So with the pancakes made, and they're just cooling down a little bit, my syrup has cooled down, so I'm going to pour about a teaspoon of rose water into it and give it a stir around. That's good like that. And set that to one side for a moment. So I've taken some of the pancakes and they look like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick one up like that, and I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to squeeze one end like that to squeeze it together to seal it, and then with the open end I'm going to pipe in my cream. I'll see if I can show you that better with another one. And with cream piped in like that, I'm simply going to dip that into my pistachios, and then I'm going to place it on a plate. So we take one, fold it in half, and squeeze the end together to seal it. And that's why we're keeping them under paper towel, under kitchen towel, sorry. That's to keep them from drying out so that we can seal them. And then I'm going to pipe in the cream like that, and just gently dip it in the pistachios, and do the same with the remainder. So I've just filled 10 of the Qatayef Asafiri for the time being. I'm going to wrap the remaining pancakes in some plastic wrap to keep them moist and put them in the fridge, and put the filling in the fridge as well, so I can make some more tomorrow and take them round to my niece. But this is what they look like, the ones that I've done at the moment, and they filled out quite nicely. And what I've done is I've taken some of my syrup that I made, and I've just drizzled some syrup over one of them, and I'll have a taste of this one. The pancake's lovely and soft, as it would be, and then obviously the soft cream filling, but you get those floral flavours coming through from the rose. So you've got the creaminess of the filling, but you definitely get the rose, and I'm guessing the orange blossom water. I can't taste that specifically, but certainly the rose water is coming through very, very nicely. That's a very popular flavour in the Middle East. And I thought I would make these because although they're enjoyed during Ramadan, I think they deserve a wider audience. Having been prompted by my sister Margaret to look at them, I thought I would give them a go. So it's not a difficult recipe. The only tip I can give you is if you think you're not getting enough air holes, or the air holes are too big in your pancakes, maybe your batter's not quite thick enough. If you're getting very, very small air holes or no air holes at all, maybe the batter's too thin. So you can adjust it like that. And I found I did a practice of 2 or 3 pancakes before I actually showed you the ones I was making, and that just helped me to be sure that my batter was the right consistency. So that's going to be it for this recipe, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well, and I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.